Okay, we are back. Sorry for these technical difficulties. When you run a Linux system, everything is open source software. But it's still, but for those of you who have Windows 10 and you hate it, let me offer you Linux. You don't have to pay the hundreds of dollars on the shelf to upgrade your computer to that crap. Just go to Linux. There is an operating system for you that fits you. And the best part is, it's free. You can't beat that. If you like one part of the operating system and you like another, you can fix it to meet your needs. Go to Linux. Go to Linux. I'd also like to, at this time, to give a shout out to a new friend I met named David Harkness up in Connecticut. He's been in the buses like I have, and he has a wonderful YouTube channel too. I don't even know the exact channel offhand, but I recommend you look him up. He has been a wonderful friend too, even though I barely know him, but we both know buses. But so far since I've been here to pass the time, even though it is a lot of ways like a jail, I've successfully have pulled pranks, I've stuck in mannequins in elevators, and I've done weird signs and weird voices around it. But so far my personality has shown through here. Now what's ironic is that I've been in Missouri for well over 5 years now, and I think that the state of Missouri has been the most friendly state I've ever been to. Now I can't see your guys' comments, and I won't be able to see them until the end of the recording. But let's take a time to pause a bit to remember those that have gone before us and have been grateful, and to give that sacrifice. Okay. And what's amazing is today I was commenting on a news feed, and it's like people are accusing everybody of different racial things and different differences. First of all, every race can be divided up several ways. According to the Old Testament, you're either the chosen people or you're the Gentiles. According to the New Testament, you're either a believer or you're lost. According to various other opinions, there's many and different styles of groups. But in the end, we're all born in the image of God, so why should what we look like matter? That's all I have to say about that. We did recently in Missouri have a shooting, and of course they're suing, but I can't really determine whether it was good or not because I wasn't there. Now to talk about, now we heard it earlier, the first movement, but I came to write the piece when I was in NMCB5, and it took me till after PASSAT to finish it all. The piece is a little of how I lived and how I was in school. And when I wrote the piece, anyone who knows how I write music is I love repeats in my music. I love key changes. And I always favored the brass over everything. At one point my parents insisted that I have to do secular stuff on hymns and stuff out of the Bible. But then I learned over the years that I could do stuff with the same types of messages and still present them in a way that gives the same point across. And one of the things you'll find in my stories is that the characters are very vague. That's because, and there's always the one riddle in every one. In the Ghost of the Woods, the question is, who is the ghost? The ghost to us can mean a lot of things, and I chose to go on the other meaning of the word ghost. Even though a lot of people manage in a ghost to be a spirit from the dead, in this case I chose to figure, well, a ghost could be a person that's there but never seen, but is just as much responsible for everything in the being. Like, for example, when you go to board an airline, you don't see the other people that prep your flights, that do everything for you so you can fly, or when you go about your daily business, you don't see the stuff that are behind the scenes. And then there are other people that want to reach out and want to be your friend, and they have that innocence in them, but yet we really don't think about them. They're not there. Then there are other people that are a part of our lives we may never see, but we know they're there. And part of making the story was that when I made the story, and some of it was the person had asked me. Of course, she's now known as Stephanie Tomlinson, which she doesn't want to have anything to do with me, which I can't see why, because I've been trying to be a good friend to her for years. She played flute. She asked me if I ever did work with the flute. So I specifically wrote this piece to incorporate a flute soloist, which is ironic. I never put the piece to score because I never had the chance to write it on the score. And from the looks of things, this is the only section that you'll ever hear of it. It was a 5-movement symphony. Tomorrow we will do different things. I will not every couple of days I will play a different movement of that symphony, because I got to keep you hooked into the channel one way or the other. I'm not going to tell you what happens in the rest of it. You'll have to find out as you tune in. But as you'll discover, the work that went into it, it really took a lot for me to do that. Of course, I've also written many, many works before that. bear with me. Just one of my fans has just asked me a question, so I had to take the time to pay attention to my fans. Now, this was our mannequin who was looking to get a meal for Christmas dinner and willing to work for it. Now, this is, we could learn a few things from that. And since the news is fake, why not let the mannequin read it? Mannequin read it. So there we have it. As you can see, I have a very well obsession with buses. Everything I do besides music is buses, and then my faith, which is why they call me the Busman. Now, for those of you tuning in again, I talked earlier about being in Virginia, where I was born and raised. I lived up in Bull Run Mountain, and then I lived in Spotsylvania for the majority of it. And as I also know the big mess that goes on in 95, because anyone who's lived in Spotsylvania has driven it going north and knows it's ridiculous, and they got the HOV lanes going all the way up past Quantico, a little before Stafford. And then they recently did the most stupidest thing since I've left, putting a toll lane in there. That's just going to make the problem worse. Well, it'll generate money all right, but it's not a good idea. And then I remember back in high school, they talked about, since Fredericksburg's population was growing in Spotsylvania and the area, they talked about proposing a beltway around the whole area, which the debate was it would cost another bridge over the highway. Well, the other problem is it would also tear up half of Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania to do all that. And now recently, our esteemed Virginia's ex-governor, which I don't have much respect for, because he had the goal to threaten our commander-in-chief, he says he wants to extend the commuter lane all the way up into Fredericksburg. Great idea, except you're just going to back the problem from where it's at now all the way into Fredericksburg. Now, if he had taken the time, or if anyone had taken the time, I have a hypothesis on this, and I can guarantee you, if I asked half the drivers that were commuting from there where they were going, and where Route 3 is located, the first few things I would say is that they're either going to Orange or Culpeper to get home, or they're going to Spotsylvania or Louisa to get home from there. That's probably about right, and so that clears up Route 3. And then, of course, you have the Spotsylvania Mall. And then you also have the fact that the people don't want to keep the intersections clear, which was also one of my pet peeves, because if you're in a traffic jam and you can't clear an intersection, don't cross the white line. Otherwise, you're just going to set yourself up to be ticketed for running a red light. Now, my proposal is a little bit better. As you see here, and here you look at Charlottesville and 6495. If you go up to about in the Stafford area, make a bypass going towards 64 in Charlottesville up right near into Orange, it would move half the traffic from Route 3 and put people more into that area. Before my computer had crashed and I had to reload it, I had a sample of it. Let's see if I can pull it up again. But the idea is that, and I've had this idea for a long time, and of course it was never heard because I left for the Navy. But to anyone who can relate, if you can see my line, that's how the bypass should be. Let me see if I can zoom it in for you so you can see. If you take and put the bypass right about here, Stafford, it'll go through more country line, and it'll go a little earlier in before the Rappahannock River becomes the Rappahannock. And you'd go right through Orange, all the way through Louisa, and into 64. It would be more feasible to do it that way because a lot of people going down 95 South are not going to go to Richmond to go to 64 to go to Charlottesville when they could just cut across and do it that way. Of course, there's other routes too if you're starting from earlier up in DC. But if you look at where Route 3 is at, it is a good idea. It is, and it's a good hypothesis. Of course, I could be wrong too, but it is a good hypothesis to be investigating. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cut off here, but I want to thank everyone who has watched for joining us, and I want to ask everyone to keep me in your prayers. Hopefully I will be back on about the same time frame. Thank you very much. I'm going to cut off here. So have a nice day, and God bless.